Yo, what it do, brothers? It's another day, another dollar. We out here trying to get to it. Welcome to another episode of the Learning Manhood podcast, where we are working on our mental health and growing our spiritual wealth all at the same time. Now, I said that off the top of my head, and it sounded like extra churchy, like hearing it back for the first time. Like I thought about it earlier today, and I was like, "Ooh, that's clever! Like I like that." But now that I've actually said it out loud, it sounds like extra churchy. Like we are working on our mental health, but we are growing our spiritual wealth. Can I get an amen? But we rolling with it. I like it. I'm sticking with it. So get used to it, because I'm probably gonna say it every episode from now on. But today I want to ask y'all a question. Today I want to talk about something that's important to me, and it should be important to you because it is something that we all deal with. Today I want to talk about fear, and I want to talk about doubt. So my question is to you: what is it that you do when you experience fear, and what is it that you do when you experience doubt? Now, for most of us, we don't have fears that you would immediately, point at. Like when we're kids, we're like, "Oh my God, we're afraid of spiders and the dark and all this stuff like that." We don't have. We're grown men. We generally don't have. We have fears of things like falling from great heights, which is highly unlikely. You're not going to fall off the top of a skyscraper because you're likely not going to be on the top of one, right? But the things that I want to talk about that we actually fear are things that we try to avoid and pretend like we don't fear. For example, there's a lot of us, myself included, the fear of success, the fear of failure, the fear of like perception, the fear of letting people know who we actually are, the fear of taking that mask off in public. These are fears that truly hold us in this lockdown holding pattern and keep us from progressing with our walk from God. Because all these things, do they sound like a man of God to you? A man of God that fears letting people know who he actually is? That doesn't sound like a man of God. And then with the doubts, right? We doubt our capabilities, we doubt our purpose, we doubt our intentions, and we doubt our own knowledge. We doubt our gifts sometimes. There are so many of us right now with gifts, God ordained gifts, but we doubt these gifts. And so then we don't act on them. And it's not, I'm going to tell you this every time. It's not just you. I deal with these things. Sometimes like I talked to you guys about all the things that I was fearing in the natural world within the anxiety episode. But I fear success. Sometimes I fear your perception of me. I fear failing. I fear failing to uphold the purpose that God has in my life. I fear the fact that sometimes I fear that the things that I'm doing to spread the gospel are not going to be enough to get the men that I pray for on a daily basis to where they need to be. So I fear for my role in your life, brother. I fear that I'm not going to accomplish the things that God wants me to accomplish for my family. I fear that I'm not raising these children right. I'm fearing that I'm not even getting close to the level of love that my wife deserves. But I have to pray against these things, these fears actively, because when I settle into these fears and I let these fears take over, and it's always very, very subtle. It's always very, very subtle that these fears start to seep into my mind. It keeps me from doing a thing. For example, me fearing my role in your life, brother, me fearing that I am not smart enough. I am not read my word enough. I am not churchy enough to impact your life. If I fear that these things are running through my mind, I eventually end up not wanting to sit down and record. Before you even get to recording, I have to write all these things out. Like I have to plan out what I'm going to say. And if I don't feel, if I'm letting myself succumb to fear and letting myself succumb to doubt, we don't get there. So I have to pray for these things. Like I doubt sometimes that you and I sitting here having this conversation right now, is worth either of our time. Like I doubt that, the boys that I am raising are going to end up being well-rounded individuals, because there are times where I don't feel like a well-rounded individual. I feel completely unhinged. And then I doubt that I'm doing my job at raising my kids correctly. Now, I know God has a purpose for my life. You know God has a purpose for your life. If you don't know that, brothers, let me be the first to tell you, congratulations. God has a plan for your life. Now, I have a whole nother, episode that I'm working on talking about the things that you have been through in your life that God is using to help strengthen you to be able to help other people, which is a lot of what I do here. All these things that we talk about are a bunch of stuff that I had to go through that I can share with you all. But the back to the whole situation of doubt, like God has a purpose for your life, and the moment we begin to doubt that purpose, we begin to pull away from that purpose. And if we are willing to believe that God has a purpose for your life, then we must also believe the opposite is true, that there is an enemy out there that has a mission to derail that purpose. And fear and doubt are his two main tools to derail you from that purpose. To be honest, it cripples us as men. Fear and doubt cripple us as men because there is so much potential in a lot of us that is never realized. Never realized because we allowed fear and doubt to keep us in our comfort zone. We were supposed to soar, but we ended up sitting. Like that is, and that is something that I'm, it's sad to say that I see in the generation of my father, right? There's so many men that just got beat down by life that you just quit on their dreams. They quit on trying to achieve. There's like, I'm going to get up every day. I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday. And I'm just going to hope that I don't die today. And that is because we allowed fear and doubt to cripple us. So I want to tell you real quickly about my journey through self-doubt and fear. I bring up the mask piece of it because that is something that I dealt with for a very, very long time. Self-doubt is actually a very common trait in males, and it generally begins in our teenage years. For me, I was doing the most to become someone that I really wasn't. Like for those people out in the world right now that knew me in high school, that knew me soon after, that knew me through my early adulthood, they don't know who I am right now. They would probably be very surprised to find me on Facebook and be like, oh my God, this dude's got a whole podcast and he's talking about Jesus? Like, this dude talking about God? Like, do y'all know the kind of things I got into with old Eddie Kane? Yeah. So I was trying to do the most. And I had this, my self-esteem was very, very low. And so I overcompensated with that with an overinflated ego that was all a facade. And young Eddie Kane was trying his hardest to be a gangster, and it was bad, y'all. Like I grew up in some rough neighborhoods, but like I knew that the best way I could figure out how to fit in was to act like the people around me, when I was the kind of guy that would have rather been in a library, right? Like I was a good kid at heart trying to pretend to be a bad kid. And that came into my adulthood. And one of the greatest fears I always had with being this person wearing this mask was that someone was going to reveal me for who I actually was, right? So I had all this fear of exposure all the time. And I think the amount of freedom that I achieved from learning how to be authentically who I am, the amount of freedom that I achieved from letting God tell me who I am, brothers, look, if you are in a space right now where this resonates with you, where you realize that there's parts of your life that are not truly authentic, that you got some secrets that you're holding on to, you got some things you're ready to take to the grave that are just eating you inside. When I tell you, like, when they say the truth will set you free, like when they say it, when the Bible says it, right? that is such a real expression because I lived my life in this cage of all the lies that I had told, all the faking that I had done, trying to hold up to the code switching that I had for different groups of people because I was always trying to be the type of person that could fit into as many crowds as possible. So it was crazy when I finally let all that go and became to the uh, real authentic self. Like it was so liberating. It is so liberating. We spend so much time in this day and age talking about keeping it real and being real, but I think we are more fake than ever, to be honest. Like I think we have just gotten really good at pretending to be real. Like we've gotten really good at showcasing the facade instead of actually just walking in our honest truth. Now, if if you want to really sit down and take away, if you take away anything from this today, brothers, because I'm gonna cover some verses, I'm gonna cover some practical tips, I'm going to try to leave you with something encouraging to go on to. But if you don't pick up anything from what I'm talking to you today, I just want you to know, brother, it's okay to be you. From one brother to another, it's okay to just be you. You are enough. And I want you to know that from me to you, you are enough. I hope that you wake up every morning and realize that you're enough and you grow into who you are and how God made you, brother. Um, there is nothing that defines you other than the fact that God made you. It's not your money. It's not your job. It's not the lady hanging off your arm. It's none of that. None of that stuff defines who you are. God defines who you are, and God says that he loves you and that you're enough, brother. But I'm going to go ahead and get into the verses. I have a couple of verses that I want to share with you all. But as I was writing these verses down and going through the practical steps to conquer fear and doubt in your life, it occurs to me that I share these verses with you guys every week, but they're not like, I don't want you to get the wrong idea about what these verses I'm sharing are for. These verses, sure, they will help you when you are feeling these things and you are in a thing and you are grasping out for a way to pull out of this hole. But that's not what they're designed for. If we're being honest, right? Sun Tzu says, and I think I'm going to have to paraphrase, or I'm going to talk for just a second and then it's going to come to me. It's every battle is won before it's fought, which essentially means you don't go into battle unprepared, right? It's the general or the military leader or the grown man that is thinking about what is going to happen in the battle before the battle comes, to be ready to face the battle, not walking into a battle that he knows he's going to lose. So the purpose of these verses is not to reach out for when you're on the battlefield and struggling. These are for you to remember while you're on the battlefield and struggling. You have to put the work in up front. Like, you have to spend time in your word. You have to spend time praying. You have to spend time in these, like, studying these things and being prepared for these things, internalizing these things. So when fear and doubt creep into your mind, your instinct is to go back to those moments that you practiced, that you prayed, that you got ready. We spend so much time like practicing so many other things in our lives. What makes our spiritual journey any different? It's the times in which you're not dealing with fear, the times that you're not dealing with doubt, that you're laying the groundwork to be prepared for it when it comes, right? I like the quote by Mike Tyson: everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right? If you've ever been punched in the face, and for someone like me that spent a lot of time trying to pretend to be a gangster, I have gotten punched in the face, your body goes into autopilot, right? And it's like, okay, I've gotten punched in the face. My body is going to react. I can't see like stars, whatever, I need to react quickly. And based on what you have been training yourself to do, you are either going to immediately set your feet, put your hands up, and prepare to fight, or you're going to run. Simple. And I don't know about you, brothers, but I would like to set my feet and prepare to fight when I'm starting to get faced with fear and with doubt. And the only way to do that is to spend time in your word, spend time reading and internalizing these verses, and be prepared for the fight when it comes. So the first verse I want to read is Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. This is God's promise that he's going to always be with us. Now, this verse is primarily about, fear and doubt and things of that nature, but I need you to understand the buy-in here, right? So do not fear, for I am with you. You have to believe that God is with you to then get to the part where you're not fearing, right? Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. If you are going to believe that God exists, you're going to believe that he is almighty and he's sovereign. If you are going to believe that he is who he says he is, do not be dismayed. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. You see how we spent that whole first bit establishing who God was and who he should be to you. And then once we've established that, we come back to telling you, look, now that we have discussed who I am, I will strengthen you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. I need you to be prepared to call on me. And like I said, you have to sit on that word to be able to be prepared for when that moment comes. The next verse I have for you is 2 Timothy 1:7. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. Now, I love this verse because God did not design us to be afraid. He did not design us to be timid. He did not design us to have fears. The spirit of power and love and self-discipline is what God gave us to overcome being timid. The first time somebody in the Bible says that they're afraid is after Adam messes up and eats the apple, right? He's like, where were you? They've eaten the apple, and then he's hiding. He's like, I was naked and I was afraid. And he was like, who told you was naked? Like, what? Went since this man has named every single animal and has not flinched. He walked right up to a tiger, to a bear, to a lion, to a hippo, and was like, look, your name is hippo. Your name is lion. Your name is bear. Like, dope. Like, I love this game. Was not afraid of anything until after sin is introduced to the world, which lets you know that, again, the enemy is just using fear to hold you back. The last verse I want to cover is one of my all-time favorite verses. It's such one of my all-time favorite verses. It's the only verse that I've got tattooed on my body, because it is something that I have to remember at all times. It's also called the shield of the Spirit. Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Have I not commanded you? That's a bar right there from jump. You are in a situation, and the first thing God says to you is, have I not commanded you? Did I told you to do this, right? Like, I told you, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Have I not commanded you? Oh, bars. I love that verse. I love that verse. It's one of those verses that when I find myself succumbing to fear, succumbing to doubt, and I look down on my arm and I see, have I not commanded you? I start to feel stupid. It's like, you did tell me, let me fix myself right quick, because you commanded me to not be afraid. You commanded me to stand up straight and get my back right. Like, come on now. Like, let me get my stuff together. Excuse me for stepping out of line. Like, my bad, Lord. Jeez. Like, whew. I love that verse, obviously. That's one of my favorites. And next, I want to get into some practical steps, right? So we talked about what it means to be prepared to go through these things, right? And so practical steps, right? Prayer and surrender. Sit down and pray. Like, one of the things that is the most difficult about prayer is being open, being honest, and talking to God. But that's part of learning how to surrender. And I have a verse for that. Philippians 4, 6 through 7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, be by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and in your mind of Christ. Develop a habit of daily prayer, surrendering your fears and doubts to God on a daily basis. It is one of those things that has greatly elevated my life, spending more and more time in prayer. Like, I can notice those days where it's like, man, I haven't prayed enough today. Like, spending more and more time with God makes me feel better, because that's the space that my spirit was designed to be in. The next tip I want to share with you, that I'm always going to plug, I'm going to tell you this every time: surround yourself with a supportive community. Ecclesiastes 4, 9, and 10. Two are better than one. If either of them falls down, one can help the other one up. You got to enjoy and engage in Brothers with a Community. And if you are looking for a place to engage with other men of God, other brothers in faith that are just trying to grow and build their mental health and grow their spiritual wealth all at the same time, like, come join us on the Facebook page, Learning Manhood Podcast on Facebook. We are just in there trying to encourage each other, trying to grow with each other, trying to pray for each other. So if you're looking for that in your life, come join us. And the last step I want to give you, the practical step, is I want you to reflect on your past victories. We spend a lot of time harboring ill will and angst about the things that have gone wrong in our lives. But there are things that go right every day that I need you to reflect on. In 1 Samuel 17 and 37, the Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hands of this Philistine. Now, I need you to look back in the times in which you had fear, in which you had doubt, and the Lord delivered you. I really want you to look at these things, because that is what you're going to call on when you're in the middle of, you're in a fight. You're like, Lord, I'm dealing with this thing, and I know that you be having my back. So I'm going to need you to pull me up out of this thing. Lord, give me the strength to press my way forward, so that way I can beat back this fear and this doubt and this trap of the enemy. So reflect on your past victories. It's important to give praise for the things that are going well in your life, and not just the things, like, don't languish on the things that are going wrong, because that's how you get stuck in the spiral. You get stuck in the spiral, and the next thing you know, you're just languishing. You're in bed staring at the ceiling like, I don't want to get out of bed today. The kids are up way too early in the morning and they want Cheerios, and you just want to scream. For some of you, that hit. The rest of you, don't mind me. I'm doing too much. So as we close, I want to encourage you to, one, join us on the Facebook group. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you all. For those of you that listen to the podcast, I'm on YouTube as well. I'm also sharing things on YouTube that are not just on the podcast. We're doing Bible study, and I am just kind of drumming up YouTube content. I'm enjoying making video, and it's fun. So come join us over on YouTube. Come join us on the Facebook group. And I want you to know that, again, brother, you are enough. Just you. Just you. It's okay to be you. It is okay to understand for yourself that you have fear and you have doubt. Don't beat yourself up. You are human and you are flawed, brother. It's all right. It's all right. You are flawed. I need you to be able to sit in that and understand that God got your back. And your brothers here, I got your back. I got your back every day. I'm praying for you guys. And I hope that you guys are doing well. I had another verse to share with you. Psalms 56, 3 and 4. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you, in God, whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? With God, what can mere mortals do to me? I actually sometimes, when I have a rough day, I remember that, yeah, sure, there are things going on in my world that irritate me, but what can these people really do to me? Nothing. God's got my back just like he's got yours. Thank you for joining me today. I want you to know that I love you and that I'm praying for you, and God bless. I look forward to seeing you all next week, when I'm going to come with a whole nother episode. I don't even know what it's going to be yet. We're going to keep it funky. We're going to find out. I'll see you guys in the next one.